So welcome. It's always good to be here. I love seeing all your beautiful faces right here in person. The title for my talk today is Time for a Spiritual Tune-Up. We are in the month of August now, and I have to say, I feel like time is speeding up so fast. Anybody else feel that too? Unbelievable. Yeah. So the new theme for this month, for August, is a pause of guidance. And since we have a rotation of speakers throughout the month, you may hear people with other topics, such as they're suggesting reflection for guidance, rest, rejuvenation, preparing for the next leg of our journey. And these topics bring a very welcoming joy and authenticity for us, and even a vulnerability and innovation and the opportunity to evolve our thinking. That's what this month is about. And I think that just sounds wonderful. Feels good to even talk about it like that. And we pause to listen for that still small voice within. We listen for the guidance from our soul, for our personal tune-up, and then we come out renewed and ready to put our new self out for the world and for our work. To pause and tune up is a time we take for ourselves. Personally, I'm a little busier right now than I've been in a very long time, but I have other groups that I'm involved in, and I have other friends as well who are taking the month of August off. It's their sabbatical time, and they're taking it off for personal space, self-reflection, and just for rest. I have one friend who even turns off all of her electronics, phone, computer, everything, with just a message that says she'll get back to you in 3 to 4 weeks. Now, that's a lot. I couldn't do that, but she takes that time for herself, and you just have to respect that. There's one thing about taking self-care time and doing a spiritual tune-up, and some of that is really about recharging your internal battery. Have you ever felt when your own battery has run down? That happened to me. Had never heard of that before, and it was back in, I would say, 98 or 99. I was putting myself back through college to finish my bachelor's, and it was a really busy time for me. So I was working full time, going to college. I was involved in spiritual groups. I put myself into counseling. I had teenagers in and out between my house and their dad's house. And wow, my life was full. About that time, the Dalai Lama was coming to the University of Utah, where I was going to school. And so I bought tickets to go see him, because who wouldn't want to see that? So full day of classes and work, and I went into the auditorium where the event was going to be. And I have to say that it was absolutely amazing to watch the Dalai Lama in person. When they bring him into the room and they sit him down, and you could feel it, the energy in the room. It was amazing. But I was only in my seat for about 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I felt lifeless. And I couldn't even hold my head up, and I couldn't stay. My friend next to me is like, "Are you crazy? You're sitting in front of the Dalai Lama." I said, "I can't stay. I have to go." So I left, and I left the building and didn't even do the sidewalk. I went, or headed straight to my car, and I ended up having to sit and even lie down in the grass 2 times before I got to my car. I got myself home, went to bed. Within a few days, I went to have an energy reading and get some Reiki. And my friend told me, she said, "I'm getting the message that your internal battery is totally depleted." I didn't even know that was a possibility. So I experienced that. And so she gave me some very good ideas for self-care. So that's what we're going to talk about, because that's important. So the month of August is actually a very good time for self-care, since September signifies a lot of changes. Now the summer is coming to an end. Things get pretty serious after Labor Day. In my mind, I've always associated September with kind of the start of the school year, but I know school starts a little sooner now in most places. It's also the time that the weather begins to change. But as I thought about that sentence, who knows what the heck's going on with the weather? It snowed at the Amazon last week. I mean, the weather is doing all kinds of crazy things, but normally the weather would be shifting. I remember as a child, September was the time that my mom would clean all the summer clothes and put it away and bring out all the winter clothes because everything was in boxes and mothballs. I don't think we do that anymore. So September signifies that big shift and all the things that happen, and then you're heading into the holiday season. So August is that time for just taking time for yourself and relaxing and bringing yourself kind of inward for a bit. So the statement from the Center for Spiritual Living Global Vision related to our topic today says this: we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other, a world in which individually and collectively, we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. And we can take these words and actually nurture them in our time for self-care. Okay, so how do we kind of initiate this? Well, if we want to grow, we must take a regular time for spiritual tune-up. So I've used the words self-reflection, self-healing, self-awareness, self. Am I being selfish to think this way and do this? No, absolutely not. It's very healthy to do this. It's important to think of ourselves. In some cases, think of yourself first, especially when it comes to self-care, because if you have nothing left within, you have nothing to offer someone else. So that's what this is about. I will tell you that ministers are usually guided to take off 1 day a week, 1 week a month, and 1 month a year, and then every couple years take a sabbatical of a couple months. Sounds luxurious, doesn't it? Well, not many ministers really get to do that, but it is a suggestion. I'm a person who recharges alone. I know some people who don't like to be alone at all. And so when they recharge their batteries and kind of get filled in, they're with a group of friends or even maybe with a small group, but they like activities because they need the energy of others to help fill them. I'm an introvert, more of a loner. And so if you're an introvert, loner, or an empath, and nowadays actually they have a category that breaks down all kinds of personality descriptions that you are. But if you're that kind of person, it's important to take time for yourself. It can get physically uncomfortable to be around a lot of people for extended periods of time. And one way to notice this is happening is that you can get exhausted faster than normal because you actually lose a sense of your personal boundary. So again, the importance of watching what's right for you and what works for you. My favorite thing to do is to go away for a weekend by myself. And that sounds a little luxurious also, doesn't it? But it's very planned out. I spend extended time in meditation before I even turn the lights on in the morning. And I do journaling 3 to 4 pages at a time. And I make sure I hold that limit. I might do more, but I never do less than that, because in my case, it takes me that much space for the monkey mind chatter to kind of calm down before really the authentic information starts to flow out on the paper. I drink my coffee slow because that's my morning warm love, my liquid love in the morning, I call it. And I do visioning, and I may go for a walk. I do some very important depth reading during that time. I might throw a nap in there too, probably do, and maybe even a movie on 1 or 2 of those days, because enjoyment is also part of self-care. I eat very clean food, healthy food during those couple of days as well. And then I will do meditation again before bedtime and reading. So it's pretty structured. I might even take a very specific meditation process if there's something special that I'm working on. So I make sure that this time for me is very extended spiritual depth work that I do. The journaling, the meditation, even the walking is time for self-reflection and awareness, and for asking questions for myself. How am I doing in different areas? Where am I going? And how can I go deeper into that realization and the embodiment of the God source that's within me? My readings are very specific, the books that I take with me on these trips, because I want to stay focused in that spiritual space. And at the end, it's my intention to come out recharged and even more aware and more on the path of my soul purpose. Brene Brown, from The Gifts of Imperfection: stillness is not about focusing on nothingness. It's about creating a clearing. It's about opening up an emotional, clutter-free space and allowing ourselves to feel and think and dream and question. This is also the perfect time to have a spiritual mind treatment with your prayer partner if you have one, or find someone who can do this with you as you go into the weekend or into your sanctuary of time, and your prayer partner can do a spiritual mind treatment to help you settle into what it is you want to have happen during this time. And then you could have a treatment at the end of your time to help. This person will claim with you what you've accomplished. And not a bad idea to have them know that you might call them in between, in the middle of it, if something comes up with some of the issues as well. There's never a wrong reason to have a spiritual mind treatment with a prayer partner. Okay, so you've got your space. So we go into the space and evaluate where you would like improvement in your life and be teachable in these areas for something new. One of the questions I might ask is, what old patterns are limiting my full potential? And where am I holding myself back from growth? Abraham, channeled by Heygster, says this: when you continue to ask the question, you continue to practice the vibration of the question, which is different than the vibration of the answer. But when you quiet your mind so that you're no longer keeping the question active, then the answer can come to you, because you're not holding yourself in the tension of an unanswered question. That sounds good, doesn't it? I like that. So we ask the question, we go into the stillness, and we receive what comes up to speak to us. When that moment of aha comes, a response that really feels right for you, then you can even move into a releasing, letting go of the old stuff, maybe even a personal ceremony for releasing and honoring what it is, and even forgiveness if that's appropriate. When we allow ourselves to be teachable to something new for ourselves, we break down our ego a bit and we open to being humble. Brene Brown, if you are familiar with her work, always emphasizes to be open and vulnerable. That's her big thing. Be vulnerable, because that's where we grow. So while you're alone, no one's watching, be open, vulnerable, and humble for yourself. Open to an awareness of any shortcomings, and be honest about that, and create an opening of inner freedom. So you don't have to protect those parts of yourself that we sometimes try to hide from others. That's what this space and being alone is all about. You're alone and you're safe. No one's watching. So it's not a time for hiding from flaws. It's a time for allowing all of that to come out, all from those dark corners. And we're in a place of acceptance of ourselves, where we are, what we've done, where we're going. And it's about loving yourself, because all of those parts are important in this moment. So you be loving to yourself, develop a quiet understanding and a compassionate heart for what you've been through and the healing that is going to take place. A little bit more about my story. Taking this vocation in ministry brought up a lot of feelings of insecurity when I stepped into it, and even feelings of unworthiness. But I have to say, they were hiding in there somewhere, right? Or they wouldn't have shown up. Those were some of my shadow parts. So I knew spirit and guidance was leading me all the way and walking beside me, but it took a lot of work to allow myself to step up in front of other people, because that's not something I had done before. Shadow work and forgiveness are vital components of my own personal work that I do for clearing the bumpy road where I've come and clearing the path before me as I move forward in my life. It's my big personal work. I actually do a little bit of shadow work every single day. I have a little format that I was taught that I work with, and even heard something again on the radio coming here today that I was listening to and added to it again. So that stuff's very important for me. And what comes up are those parts that are hidden in all those different corners of my unconscious, and things that have maybe been some trauma in the past, or where I hurt somebody or somebody hurt me, things that made me fearful. It's time to bring those back into the light, is what they say. Bring all those things out of the shadow into the light, integrate it, forgive myself or any other person, and bring all of my parts back together. I tell myself that I'm stronger together as one than all of those little parts scattered. And then I forgive all those little parts when they come back. As I learned more about that importance of taking time for self-healing and acceptance, it became easier to bring all those shadow parts back. And so the work now, I'm amazed at the things that come up from my memory that are so old. And now the piece that I learned today, I will tell you, is about doing shadow work and clearing of our ancestral line, because we don't know really what we're bringing with us. And so those things as well, you can even just claim that those come up, and that you can, you can do work with those parts. Ministry is one of those vocations, and I'm sure there's others, where when a person steps out for the first time, this is going to sound really funny, but it's easy to have a sense of feeling like a fraud, because this is a very powerful position. I felt like that, but I found it very interesting to hear that other new ministers, even in ministerial school, kind of felt the same way. So that's a piece of honesty about that. Because you think to yourself, how can I stand here in front of other people and do this? Am I worthy of this? And because I'm a carrier of the word of God, in a sense, I'm to be an example and bring light, for all, and share this information. But when we do our clearing, when we do our personal work and let go of those parts of ourselves that, are part of feeling that unworthiness and that fear, everything dissipates. And you realize that you come into this position, or really any occupation, with a calmness and a comfort, and everything falls into alignment and it feels right. So it's not just ministry. It's any occupation, it's any path, it can be anything. When we are able to touch that part inside of us, then things come into alignment, and we do that in that quiet space. So my path is just an example. So, okay, we are opening ourselves up. It's time to lose what no longer serves you and create the thing that you want. So I asked the question, what's not working the way I planned? Well, for many, when we fail at something that was really important to us, whether it's a job or a part of a job or a relationship or something of that nature, it can really hurt our self-esteem. We can plummet in that area because we've tied our self-worth to that thing. Our ability to withstand the failure or the criticism really comes from our own personal expectation of what we wanted. So how is our personal strength carrying us through that kind of situation? It is our value and our humanness and our self-worth that helps move us along. When we don't live up to our own expectations, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us. Some things work, some things don't. That's life. And maybe it's just a sign that we go in a different direction. But we tend to take those things very personally, don't we? I do. So maybe it didn't work the way I planned. How about I make a new plan? In order to grow, we learn. In order to learn, we have to be teachable. And to be teachable, it's good to be humble, where we're owning our mistakes and our shortcomings, but not beating ourselves up. We are loving ourselves all along the way. Ernest Holmes, in This Thing Called You, chapter 10, begins this way: who loses his life shall find it. Since the whole teaching of Jesus was that God is life, he could not have meant that you should actually lose your life, but that you should let go of the lesser in order to experience the greater. The actual quote is from Matthew 10:39. Whoever finds his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Letting go of the lesser is releasing the idea or the thought of something that is negative, something that has held you back. An example is, if you lose a sense of unworthiness, you will become worthy. You've created space for the wholeness and the positivity of worthiness to fill in that space because you're not thinking and focusing on the negativity. So this is what Dr. Holmes meant when he writes the true meaning of losing your life. Because what you lose really is that false sense of being. You lose the unhappiness, unworthiness, lack of health, wealth, or fear. Holmes goes on to say that I love this. I laid in bed last night and wished I could remember this particular quote. If you could become consciously and subjectively aware, even for one moment, of your true spiritual perfection, your mind could be converted instantly. And with that, healing would take place and abundance would begin to flow into your life. Wow. If you want to know the true unity of life in the presence of God, then we must let go of any sense of separation from God and from our good, and then we'll find ourselves united with it. So we let go of the lesser, so the greater, which is God, fills in. We let go of the dark, so the light, which is God, fills in. We let go of the negative, so the positive, which is God, fills in. Right now, I'm rereading Living the Infinite Way by Joel Goldsmith. It's just rolling me over. It is staggering reminder that God is all there is, totally, the totality of it, all God, nothing else. It speaks of meditation and prayer, that it does not work to actually ask God for anything, because all of life, all flow, all supply, all abundance, all sustenance, all wellness is already within, because it is already ours by divine inheritance, right? We don't ask for it from a source outside of ourselves. We experience it because it's already within. John 16:15, all things that the Father hath are mine. And this is Jesus teaching his disciples. And they were accepting and bringing this in at the level of their understanding. But that's what he was teaching them. All that the Father has are mine. God, the Father, the source, is right here. The kingdom of heaven is within. It is already there. Goldsmith stresses that to let go of man-made labels of bad and also of good towards ourselves, towards others. Our learning is to be the embodiment, the realization, and the actualization that all God is our experience, and it's our only experience. So if God is here, and God is life, and there's one life, and this life is my life now, it is only all right here, always expressing out. The only thing holding us back is our thinking that either we don't have it, we don't deserve it, or someone told us we have to go find it somewhere else. When all along, all we have to do is remember. Remember that the source of all our good is within. It's closer than your breath. We experience it to the level of our understanding, but we can be teachable to understand more and to take in more. So now, what if we took this understanding into our sanctuary of self-care and into our processing of recharging and renewing our mind and our body? This information. I wonder how that time would be different. Jackie Joyner Kersee, who was an Olympic legend in the women's track and field in 1988, told people that she maintained her edge by always being a student, because you always have something new to learn. So yes, there's always something new to learn about yourself and about this thing that we call life and the experience of life. And this is a perfect example right now with the Olympics going on. The athletes that do well, of course, they spend a lot of time in their physical training, but they have the best coaches that actually take care of their mental health, their emotional health, and their spiritual health, because it's a package. If you take care of all of that, you're a whole entity moving in that direction. And how interesting it is to see these athletes, because you know they're trained to use their visualization and their prolific imagination to see in their mind the event that they're going to do and every step it's going to take, and to see themselves winning, right? And so as I've watched them over the past 2 weeks, you see the athlete come up, you know, to get ready to do their thing. Gymnastics was my thing, so I watched the gymnastics. I was also a track and field person, so I'm watching all of it. But you watch the person come up and their eyes are closed while they're waiting and their lips are moving, because you know they're walking through their process and they're doing the whole thing. They've got it set. But you know what happens from there? They've got their imagination going, they're feeling it, they're tasting it, their energy is right there. And it's the quantum field, or what we might call in science of mind, the subjective mind, that center part of our teaching symbol, that takes that vision and that emotional energy that that athlete is building up and puts it right into form. And puts it right into and that athlete, boom, 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 does their thing. You don't have to be an athlete to really experience this, though. You can take this process into your sanctuary of alone time and as part of your tune-up and your inner growth. Meister Eckhart, the German mystic, says, be willing to be a beginner every single morning. So what's the newness that you bring into your life and your work? What will you bring back from your time alone? And your self-care, especially? What new awareness are you going to put into action? The process then is letting go of the lesser that no longer worked personally for you or for your highest good, or even for your business, and opening a space of the greater to fill in for what you want to do and what you want to be and what you want to share. So you take the new action and you visualize how it's going to be your life and how you're going to bring it forward, or the new activity that you bring back to your work. You see it, you feel it, you play it out, and you smile with it, and you laugh, and you bring it back with joy. I might also add and suggest that before you leave your sanctuary space of being alone, that you put on some crazy music, even if it is the bebop and go down the hall, down the line, but just dance it out. And let yourself shout and celebrate yourself for what you've done for that time alone and the work that you've accomplished. So I would suggest this week forward, I encourage you to take a little time for personal review, forgiveness, alignment, reassessment, and your tune-up. Even if you can't take a couple days alone, you can do it in spurts, a little bit each morning, now that this has kind of planted a seed for you. See what comes up for you. So an affirmation to end with. Today, I am realigned in spiritual truth and with my greater yet to be. Thank you.